Can we hold just a minute, please? Okay. Well, good morning, everyone, and thanks for attending our April 15th Infrastructure Committee meeting. We are live. I'd like to welcome everyone that's here and those that are monitoring or watching on TV. We're going to start off with calling our meeting to order, and the second thing after our order is to approve the minutes from March 18th. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at those?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion on the meetings? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 3-0.
Sorry. Why are you looking?
Man, I know that everyone pretty much knows everyone at the table, but we'd like to do an introduction. I'll start with myself, Council Member David Banks, and Chair of the Infrastructure Committee, representative for District 4. Sylvia?
Councilwoman Ortiz, I represent District 3. Thank you.
Neil Dobler, District 7.
And I'm the extra Councilwoman Hofer from District 9.
Thank you. Number 3 on our agenda is presentation of the Polk, Quincy Viaduct and East and Huntoon Wanamaker project. Steve?
Deputy Mayor Braxton Copley will be giving this presentation, but he was called out of the room for a minute to help translate.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, he went to help a lady that's having an emergency situation. He'll be right back. Can we just skip this and go to the action items?
Okay, we'll skip over the presentation and go through number 4, action item, amendment to the 2025-2034 CIP and the 2025 to 27 CIB automatic vehicle location project.
I'll take this one. Councilmember Banks, this first project is amendment to our CIP, our 2025 to 2034 CIP and the 2025 to 2027 CIB to add project 701065-00 for automatic vehicle location. This will be funded out of our operating fund, $75,000 per year over 3 years for a total of $225,000. This is used primarily for tracking our snowplows and our street sweepers and other assets of public works and utilities to help us be able to do our GPS locating.
Okay. Questions? Yes, Councilman Droga.
Thank you, Chair. Steve, have we had AVL on our snowplows in the past?
Mr. Chair, Councilmember Dobler, yes, we have in the past, but it's an old system and we've been experiencing a lot of connectivity issues. And this new system will also integrate better with our GIS platform.
So this is really a replacement of, and I think that system's probably 20 plus years old.
Correct.
So just a replacement. That makes sense. I'll be in support. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 3-0. We'll move back up to presentation. Braxton?
Thank you, Chair. I apologize that I wasn't available. I had to do some translation work. So,
Okay.
What we're going to talk about today are the upcoming KDOT local consults, which allow local government entities and community partners to voice their support for projects that KDOT is contemplating. The next round of local concepts and consults in Topeka will be October 9th. They've established the time at 9 a.m. I've heard that it may be in the Manor Conference Center, but we will confirm as we get closer to that. There are two projects that are near and dear to us that we wanted to take a couple of minutes and walk you through and explain the projects, as well as some high-level cost estimates. And our hope would be that the members of our governing body would attend the local consults, because when we go into breakout sessions, that gives us the opportunity to voice our support. And then KDOT does take that into consideration in terms of how much local support there was voiced for projects during the local consults when they make their ultimate decision. But obviously, it is KDOT. They are going to make their ultimate decision based on engineering judgment, but they do take into consideration input at the local consults. So the first project that we're going to talk about is PQV East, as we call it, which is the Polk Quincy Viaduct. There we go. Did I do that? Okay. So this would be a continuation of what is currently in construction right now, which is PQV West. So PQV East basically will start at 5th Street, where PQV at West will end, and then we'll go all the way around the curve, and we'll go to Indiana, which would include the replacement of 7 bridges, elimination of 2 bridges, relocation of the parking to the west side of what is Monroe. Right now, the parking is between Monroe and I-470, so you have to cross Monroe to be able to get to it. And then they'll be doing some geometrical improvements at the Adams Street, which will allow for better turn movements and merging. So some of the critical components are complete reconstruction of the 6th, 8th, and 10th Street bridges, as well as the bridges over BNSF, the Shunga, and Adams. Complete reconstruction of Madison and Monroe, smooth out the curve, and then, as I mentioned before, moving those city parking lots on the west side of Monroe. Benefits to this: corrects road deficiencies, meets current design standards, it allows for increased design speed and traffic capacity, safety improvements, and then, of course, downtown access improvements, and reduces the long-term maintenance costs. Probably the biggest one is those bridges are getting towards the end of their useful life, and they are becoming more and more of an issue for KDOT to maintain. At some point, they're going to have to replace. And if we don't do this in a comprehensive project, replacing them all at one time during a closure, that means that we're going to be doing them piecemeal, one at a time, which means that we're going to be necessarily disrupting traffic flow multiple times. So we did, back 2 years ago, got this included as part of the CIP. The estimated project cost 2 years ago was $185 million. So we put a placeholder in the CIP for what this KDOT would normally ask the city for, which is a 10% share. And so currently we have as a placeholder the $18.6 million in 2028. That's very optimistic in terms of if it were selected this year for KDOT to get that designed and get it out to bid in 2028. Likely it's get pushed out to 2029 or 2030. But the critical thing is this has not been included by, has not been authorized by KDOT for design or construction. So we definitely need to lend our voice at the local consults to get them to prioritize this project. Any questions on PQV East before I go into the next one? Yes, Michelle.
Okay. Where does 4th Street exit fall? Is it in east or west?
That would be in west. This project would start at 5th Street.
Okay, what happened to California, at the California Bridge?
That's a great question. KDOT is fast-tracking the design of that project, and their intent is to do that next year and take advantage of the full closure of I-70, because that's going to reduce the amount of traffic that is going to be traveling on I-70. But they plan to do it under traffic. And so the current plan is they will use the off-ramps and the on-ramps. So basically, traffic will just come up over the on-ramp, down the off-ramp, while they're reconstructing that bridge across there. And they are trying to fast-track the construction as well, so that it takes place during that 2026 construction season. And again, their rationale, reasoning behind it is that there's going to be a lot less traffic that's going to be carried on I-70 with the full closure.
Okay, is there any match, or is that strictly KDOT funds?
That project is strictly KDOT.
And how, back to east, how long do they think that's going to take? 2 years?
I believe 2 years is a reasonable estimate for east.
Got that. Okay, that's it for right now.
Can I piggyback off that, Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. You know, we've been talking about Golden
Yes, ma'am.
Bridge. Will they do something similar with Golden, do you think?
Golden has not yet been programmed for design or construction, based on my last conversation with Steve Ballman. It's on his list. He knows that it needs work done, but they haven't, that hasn't made it onto the funding list for design or construction.
Wow. So Braxton, I mean, I don't know bridges, I don't know, I mean, it's terrible to me when I can see the rebar and I have to call you and say I can see the rebar. So I don't know, you know, like you explained to me what was it, the PCI, or, you know, from 0 to 100 and, you know, 30% is bad, da-da-da-da. What is that on this bridge?
Okay,
I
so.
mean, what do I need to do to get it on somebody's radar, or?
PCI is a pavement condition index. Bridges fall under, because it's more of a structural issue, they fall under a different type of rating. So federal government requires that the owner of a bridge, in this case it would be KDOT, have that bridge inspected by a licensed engineer that has expertise in bridge design, construction, and they have to go in and they have to inspect that. And then if the bridge has any structural deficiencies, then the first thing that they would do, depending on the severity of those, would be to weight restrict that bridge, to limit the size of large vehicles. Currently, that bridge is not weight restricted. Obviously, if that bridge were to get into a very bad condition, then another option that would be available would be to close that bridge off, because obviously the most important thing for all of us is to make sure that people traveling over the bridge are safe. So at this point, I can tell you that KDOT is aware of this bridge. It is on Steve's list, but he has to get that onto KDOT's list for design, and whether it just needs rehabilitation, reconstruction, I mean, that will be determined by those experts. In the meantime, that bridge will be inspected every 2 years. And then if warranted, weight restriction or closure would happen, but that is not the case at this time.
Our Steve?
No.
No, ma'am.
Steve Ballman?
Steve Ballman, KDOT engineer.
Okay.
Can that be brought up at the KDOT meetings?
I don't believe that project is going to be on the list of
I know.
projects for consideration.
But can we still bring
you
it up?
absolutely can talk to Secretary Reed, talk to the engineers there in terms of mentioning that project, right?
We'll work on that.
Well, and if I may, Mr. Chair, my only concern is that bridge is used a lot. You know, it's a gateway from 21st Street coming downtown. It's a gateway from 6th Street going to 21st heading back south. It's used quite a bit. I probably travel it probably 10, 20 times a day to go back to 21st or go back to 6th Street or whatever, you know. And with 6th Street, that's going to be closed because we're going to do 6th Street from Golden to Rice Road. It's going to be used a lot because people are going to swing probably down 10th Street and then swing back.
Just as a clarification, on 6th Street, we're going to always maintain one lane eastbound and one lane eastbound and 1 lane westbound during that project, which is part of the reason that it's going to take 2 years to allow us to phase that. Certainly, we understand that when we close the Branner Bridge to do those repairs, including replacing that expansion joint and then doing the approaches, replacing those, we understand that the Golden Bridge is going to bear more traffic as well.
Right. Well, whenever we even close it to 1 lane, I know a lot of people, including myself, I just stay away from that because it's just, you can't get through. So, okay, thank you. Thank you.
For the sake of time and order, I would ask that we recognize the chair before we start conversation, please. Okay. Go ahead, Councilman Dover.
Thank you, Chair. Back to Polk Quincy, just a couple of questions. What's the ownership distinction between KDOT and the city on this project? I-70 is obviously a KDOT facility. The bridge is over 6, 8, and 10. Does the city own those, or does KDOT own those?
I'll defer, do we have Mark here? I think that they're state-owned.
Yeah, those are all key.
Okay. Obviously, the side streets that would get reconstructed in this project are city-owned.
Correct.
Any idea of what that breakout might be? We're pledging 10%. Feels like maybe the side streets, don't know if that's 10%, but it's approaching. I guess the numbers don't really matter. The point is we have some skin in this game in terms of streets that get reconstructed similarly to the project that's going on now. Maybe not exactly equal, but some portion of this project is the city's responsibility. Is that correct?
Correct, and certainly one of the factors that KDOT will take into consideration is whether that local municipality is willing to step up and put some of their money into the game, because this project would be from my perspective, a huge benefit to the city to get a $180 million project to improve I-70, improve our local roads, Madison and Monroe, as well as to provide abundant, safe parking to us. I mean, I think that the price tag is very reasonable for the benefit that the city would receive.
And I think there's some illustrations here that kind of show at least the 8th Street Bridge, which is typically considered the gateway to downtown.
And 10th.
And 10th
I
Street.
believe this is the slide you're referencing, sir.
Yeah, 8th Street Bridge, direct connection to the Capitol. What we've got right now doesn't look that great. This would certainly enhance all of that, so that would be a benefit to the city. What you're saying is KDOT has a list of projects from communities across the state that they'd like to see funded. Some communities offer to pay for a percentage of that project. Some cities don't. If we put a 10% commitment in, we're probably going to be near the top of the list when it comes to selections, because I know a lot of cities just simply can't afford that kind of commitment. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments for Braxton? Go ahead, Braxton's next presentation.
Thank you, Chair. So the next project we're going to talk about is the old adage of sometimes you got to spend a little money to help yourself out, and you have to be your own best advocate. So we recognize that there is a potential issue in terms of Wanamaker Street, and this goes from Huntoon down really to Westport. Currently, the travel times along there are 80 to 90 seconds. In terms of the modeling, we're looking at potentially by 2024 doubling those times. We as the city identified some funding to do a high-level study to come up with some options to improve the safety as well as the efficiency of these intersections, which include Winding Road, Huntoon, the I-470 off-ramp, as well as the Westport Drive and the I-70 on-ramp. Our goal was to provide the high-level estimates and then start engaging KDOT and FHWA in terms of partnering with us and cost sharing in these improvements. And so just to kind of go through what our current challenges are. So one of those is safety. So the statewide average is 0.4 crashes per million entering vehicles. And when we take that statewide average and we take it, multiply it by the number of vehicles that we have, we would expect to see a critical crash rate at Huntoon at about 0.59, and the I-70 off-ramp and the winding I-70 on-ramp are basically at 0.63. Where we are is a 0.92, so we're double what the statewide average is, and we are almost 40 basis points above what the critical crash rate is at the Huntoon intersection, and 10 basis points above where we are at the I-70 and the winding. So we have an issue, a traffic safety issue there. Additionally, our current level of service at Huntoon is the northbound and southbound legs are a level of C. And that's because we favor that north and southbound movement on Huntoon, but that is to the expense of the east and westbound legs, which currently have a level of service of E. And we're going to talk through a couple of scenarios that we looked at and what the options are, and we'll circle back to this concept of level of service, but basically what it is from a high level of service, A through F is just like your old report card when you were in elementary school. A is good, F is bad, right? And what really level of service is your perceived comfort level of travel, and it's based on what the average delay is. So if you're a level of service of A, it's less than 10-second delay. If you're a level of service of F, it is greater than a 90-second delay. So a couple of options that we looked at. Traditional intersection improvement, that's basically just leaving it as it is, just providing for more lanes. Diverging diamond, we'll talk a little bit about that. Basically, it is you split the traffic and you cross it over so that you can now make left turns without having to cross a traffic lane. And then the reduced conflict intersection, where we strategically eliminate some turn movements to improve efficiency and safety. So the first one we'll talk about, traditional intersection, basically what we're adding is we're going to have 5 lanes on each of the legs, and that would be 2 left turn lanes and a dedicated right turn lane. In addition to that, we would add a lane south of Huntoon for that first stretch to get to the bridge, and then we would add a stop signal or a traffic signal at the off-ramp to be able to meter out the flow. This particular option is about $12.5 million. So diverging diamond intersection. I'll just come up here real quick and explain what's going on. So you start here and you're driving through, then you diverge over to this side. So now you're driving on the wrong side of the road. And then you come back over to this side so you're back on that right side of the road. They just installed one of these at K10 and 6th Street in Lawrence. It takes a little while to get used to. You follow the signs, you follow the vehicle in front of you, but it's very efficient. And the other thing that this project would do is this would become one way going eastbound. And so just to walk through, if I'm driving along, coming off of the ramp, I'm merging into the traffic right here. Otherwise, I'm coming on this off ramp, and now I'm merging into this traffic that's moving through there. microphone attendant.
This is a mess.
Yeah, exactly. So this option, $14.8 million, and again, this would include a roundabout at Westport and eliminate the current access road going in right by the Panera and the other
Jose Brothers.
restaurant right there. And then the last option that we have is reduced conflict intersection. And what this would do is it would eliminate a left-hand turn off of the I-470 off-ramp, which means that you would then have to make a right-hand turn only, and you'd have to go up to Huntoon, and then do a U-turn at Huntoon to be able to go southbound. It would also eliminate a left-hand turn coming out of the mall right there at Winding and the I-470 on-ramp. So what you'd have to do is to take a right, go down to the roundabout, whip a U-turn around the roundabout, and then you'd be able to go north. Total project cost for this one is $13.6 million. So then diving into where we are with level of service. So no build situation, leaving Wanamaker where it is, at Wanamaker and Huntoon where it is right now. We're looking at level of service in 2045 or 20 years out of D, E, and F. D is minimally acceptable. E and F are obviously not acceptable in terms of the level of service. F, we're looking at average delay of more than 80 seconds to get through an intersection. You see when we get into the alternatives, either the traditional, adding the additional turn lanes, or the DDI or the RCI, reduced conflict, or diverging diamond. You see all of those are basically B, C, and D on those, and then you see down below in terms of the impact on the other intersections. Doing nothing, Winding Road eastbound, level of service of E, the rest of them B, C, D, and then we get into the alternates were A, B, and C largely in terms of the improvements on the level of service. So because engineers assign numbers and compare things, our consultant put together this chart that basically looked at traffic operations and traffic safety impacts, as well as constructability and construction cost. And when we wade through all of these, the DDI is the one that came up in terms of the highest overall score. And with that, happy to take any questions that you would have on the Huntoon project. Obviously, our ask is to get this on the list of on the projects to be considered at the local consult, which is why we invested the money to get this high-level design, to get it to a point where hopefully KDOT will select this, and then we'll be able to partner with them in terms of the cost of this.
Chair recognizes Councilmember Doble.
Thank you. So the most expensive alternate has the best score, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Surprising, I wouldn't have guessed that. You mentioned, excuse me, you mentioned in the beginning that travel time on Wanamaker is expected to double.
Yes, sir.
Is that predicated on more volume?
Yes, sir.
Where is that volume coming from?
Not being a traffic engineer, what I understand is that part of town is still experiencing growth down in the Washroo district, which is generating traffic. So you would have, even though it's not a pure one-to-one ratio, because you could have additional traffic without having additional population growth. But what was cited in the study was that section of town is still seeing growth. Even if it's not in the city, it's out in the county. And then there are obviously the retail sales in terms of restaurants and shops.
I'd like to see those numbers. Frankly, we've got a corridor that's, as near as I can tell, is almost 100% developed. I don't know what's developing south of town. We get 10 houses a year built out there, it's not going to double the volume of traffic.
Okay.
I recall the study for I-70 prior to the Polk Quincy design indicated enough traffic that we needed 3 lanes for the viaducts both directions. That never materialized. That increase that was presumed to be happening 20 years ago never happened. So now I think the viaducts we're building are 2 lanes each direction. A huge savings in cost. Second question, if I might, Chair. Diverging diamonds typically give you on-ramp, at least both ramp motions, correct?
Yes, sir, there would be no restriction on that. The RCI would restrict both of those.
Well, you're not getting, I mean, the on-ramp for westbound is off Huntoon, it's not off Wanamaker. So you've only got 1 ramp motion here, correct?
Yes, sir, the off-ramp at I-70, but then you also have the other on-ramp at I-70.
Typically, DDIs are at a diamond interchange or cloverleaf where you have all the ramp motions right there. This has the on and off ramps are on Huntoon and Winding Road. They're not even affected by this DDI. You just have the on-ramp going southbound and the off-ramp. I think it's overkill. My gut feel is the numbers are pretty high, so I'd really like to see those volumes. A through F, I mean, you show C as being green here, which is right. I mean, C is a acceptable level of service. A is almost unachievable unless you have a free flow intersection. So C, D, I'll bet you, I don't know what the level of service is at 29th and Fairlawn, but I'll bet it's D or F in some cases there, and that's a brand new intersection. So, I mean, consultants, I've been in that industry for a long time. Consultants, given free rein, will come up with all kinds of alternatives. They're good alternatives. DDIs are, they're the hot things right now. My gut is we don't need one out there. I'd certainly look towards value engineering at some point, bringing somebody else in to take a look at this as well before we move forward. That's a lot of money for that intersection out there. And at some point, if we could get double lefts on Huntoon and Wanamaker and a double left for southbound I-470 at Winding Road, that's going to take care of a lot of the problems out there. So just saying, let's make sure we know what we're doing and aren't making this a bigger project than it needs to be. Thank you, Chair.
Any others? Chair recognizes Councilwoman Halford.
Oh, okay. Okay, first thing, I was just wondering about time frame. If we do anything out there, are we looking at maybe a year? I always think of it, the worst time of year there is Christmas time. Absolute worst. And it's bumper to bumper. So I'm trying to figure out how this would fit in time frame, if it's going to be more than a year. Do you have any estimate
Are you thinking for construction, or are you thinking for when?
for construction?
Every bit of a full construction season, if not
Okay.
spilling over into part of a second construction season. And yes, we are fully cognizant of the amount of traffic that's carried on during the holiday shopping, and we have adopted a informal policy that we don't do any work after Black Thursday on that Wanamaker corridor, and make sure any project is buttoned up and that it's back open to traffic prior to the holiday shopping season.
I will guess that number 3 is my least favorite it might help with the construction, but you're gonna have a lot of people coming off, say they're coming from I-470 westbound, and they come down to Wanamaker, and they want to turn left. They have no idea what the hell to do. Same as you're trying to be at Panera's and try and go the other direction, go north. They're not gonna be able to figure it out. We're gonna have a lot of mixed up people for quite some time, so that would be my least favorite of the options. I will tell you, Neil, growth, yes, there's still growth. I can't think of the name of the care facility. It's at 17th and Urish. I think they're about to double it. And everything that we approved that goes in between Lowe's and the hotel, that's another 50 to 90 senior, I don't know if they're patio homes or what they are. They're also tearing up more behind it and trying to sell more land back there. And there was another possible option in west of Menards, because there's some open ground there. So I'd like to think that we're slowing down out there, but I'm not sure that we are. Okay, then I'm going to take one slightly off-topic question. Last time we went to the KDOT meeting, they threw a surprise on us, and that was McVicker to Urish. What happened to that? Not Urish, Auburn Road. Because we were voting on that one. We had PQV East, which we went in to support, and then they had the other project we didn't even know was going to be brought up. So is that still out there?
Are you talking about I-70
West.
from McVicker West? Yes, and in the small session that I was in, myself and other Topeka representatives told KDOT that that was not a high priority to us, that PQV East was a very high priority to us. So I'm sure that they still have it in the hopper in terms of potential projects.
They made it sound like to us it was more important in our room than PQV East. So we were kind of thrown a curveball and we didn't know what was going on. So that's why I'm asking, is it still on the agenda or if it's been pushed back a ways? So can we check on that at some point? And see if it's still out there? Because I'd like to know going in before we get to the meetings what's going to be brought up. That was helpful to know, but then to get that.
Certainly, we can reach out to KDOT and see if that project is going to be included in the possible projects presented at local consult.
Okay.
In fact, Director Groen is making a note to do that right now.
Chair recognizes Councilman Dobler.
Thank you, Chair. Since Councilwoman Hofer directed a comment towards me, I'll respond. I understand there's going to be growth out there. We're talking about doubling volumes? Don't think so.
No.
Thank you.
It's still there.
Any other questions or comments? Just a comment from me, Braxton. I agree with Councilman Dobler. For many, many months since I've been on council, I've talked about how much latitude does the city have in making, having consultations on growth in West Topeka. I can't see it. I mean, we're going to run out, soon we're going to be annexing Maple Hill into the city. If we keep talking about growth there, I can't see it either. Thank you so much. Thank you, Braxton. We're going to move on to action item 4B, and it reads amendment to the 2025-2034 CIP and the 2025-27 CIB road scanning project. Steve?
Mr. Chair, this is, as you stated, we're looking to amend the 2025-34 CIP and the 2025-2027 CIB to add project 701-071-00 for road scanning. This would be funded out of the operating fund for $250,000. This is the action that we take every 3 years to have a consultant drive and rate every road and alley and select alleys in the city limits of Topeka. This is what generates our PCI to give us our road condition index, and also helps assist engineering and maintenance in our preventive maintenance and our road construction projects. We're looking for your support to continue on with this program.
Just as a point of clarification, the PCI is limited only to our roads.
Yep.
City staff does the evaluation of the alleys under a different matrix.
Chair.
Chair recognizes Councilman Dobler.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to say this is money well spent. I think we've used this kind of process for many years, and it's accurate and gives us a great feel for where we are with our road improvements. So I will make a motion to approve.
Motion has been made by Councilman Dobler. Second?
Second.
Motion been made and second. Any discussion or comments? All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. 3-0, motion passes. Number 5 on the agenda, non-action items. A,
So this is a non-action item. These projects are both less than $250,000, so they do not require a resolution. However, anytime that we are using these funds to take on projects that we've not brought before the council and the governing body before, we like to make sure that there's no objections. So we have 2 projects here. One is to upgrade the cameras at the law enforcement center. With the new command staff in place, this was a deficiency that they were concerned with, and so they reached out to us about correcting this issue right away. So with this proposal, we would install 74 new cameras at the law enforcement center that would be capable of making sure that that facility is secure at all times. We also had an incident here at the Holiday Building where the height bar that governs parking on our parking structure out here just behind me was struck, and we realized that the extent of the damage was significant to the bar prior to even being struck. There is some concrete that needs to be replaced, some additional waterproofing, and then we also intend to make that bar higher so that while we still alert vehicles that are too high to be on the deck, we do not cause damage to them or our property in the future. And both of these would be accomplished using firm funds. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
any questions or comments? Chair recognizes Councilman Dobler.
Yeah, just a curiosity question. What exactly is a bullet camera?
So a bullet camera refers, it's the style of camera. It's a very compact, small camera, but the resolution on it is very impressive.
Okay. I had other visions of what a bullet camera might be, but thank you.
Understood.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. We'll move on to non-action item B.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you, Chair. Today, the Utilities Department is coming forward to do a little bit of education and prep you for an initiative that we have been working on for quite some time, but we're there and we need to get this out to the public, and we want to give you all a heads up so that you can be prepared in the event you get some questions. I'm going to kind of skip around a little bit and start with slide number 3 in your packet, just to take a step back and kind of explain from a federal perspective on stormwater regulations. The Clean Water Act is something that many people have heard about, and have, some of you have been more attuned to than others perhaps, but out of those federal regulations, the city of Topeka is governed by a National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit. So we call that our MPDS or our MS4 permit. The Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System is what we manage here. We talked to the last PI committee about Ward Martin Creek. That's part of our MS4 system. It includes all of the ditches in the city, the streams, and everything that we use to collect and manage that stormwater. So we manage the stormwater utility underneath this overarching permit, our stormwater MS4 permit, which mandates that we develop a stormwater management plan. So we've been doing this for years. Our stormwater management plan is a flexible plan. We update that annually, and then we're required to report on that plan annually as well. Many of you might not be aware, but the EPA loves auditing us. We've had audits on the wastewater side, lots of stormwater audits, and then we had our first EPA water audit last year. But they absolutely love coming. I don't know if it's because we are the capital city and we're close, or if it's because we are one of just 3 Phase 1 cities in Kansas. Phase 1 MPDS permit-wise is the larger cities in Kansas. So we have a little bit different set of regulations than a Phase 2 community, which would be like the county. So knowing all of that, back in 2018, EPA visited us and had a comprehensive stormwater audit. They reviewed our stormwater management program. They want to make sure that our program is in compliance with our permits and that our permits are in compliance with the federal regulations. They identified some needs, some aspects in our stormwater management program that we needed to do some updates on to make sure that we're managing it according to best practices and what others in our same position are doing. So out of that, we've had a lot of accomplishments. That audit was in 2018, and we got the final report in 2019. We've done a lot of work towards this database. I'll tell you more about BMPs here in a minute, but we had to create a database. We had to look at some different trainings that we offer. A big portion of that permit that we're required to manage under is dedicated towards education. So I should have said that when we were talking about that MS4 permit. We have 6 minimum controls that we're required to abide by, anywhere from erosion and sediment control requirements on active construction sites to illicit discharge and detection. So we have to do some inspection on industries. We have to have programs in place to clean up spills. We work with the fire department when there might be a car accident, or most recently we had a fuel spill at a gas station that spilled into a local waterway. So we work with them to help make sure that we are responding timely and we're protecting our system as much as possible. Some of the other minimum controls are public education, public involvement, good housekeeping practices, and then this post-construction best management practices requirement. So that's really what we're here to talk about today. Anyway, we've had a lot of accomplishments out of what that audit originally requested from us, but we have one lingering thorn in our side, and that's this post-construction component that, again, we've been working on for a couple of years now. Post-construction, now this is when I'll step back to the beginning here. Post-construction stormwater management is a program that's developed to help manage the quality of runoff, quantity and quality of runoff from development. So the main goal is to keep stormwater as close to its point of origin as possible. So wherever it's raining and we're going to have new development that's increasing impervious surface or that hard surface that water runs off of, we want to try to keep that water as local as we can so that we're not creating more hardship downstream. So if you're a new development, most of this impacts commercial or industrial areas. If it's equal to or greater than an acre, we're going to ask you to comply with our requirements that will push the need to incorporate post-construction stormwater management practices, such as this picture on the right shows a basin there, and I'll give you a couple more pictures here in a minute. But again, to address the high level of runoff that we get when we have rainstorms in highly developed areas. So a few of the examples that we have, and I want to note that the city of Topeka is also required to implement best management practices. We don't just ask the community to do this, we're required to as well. So the first 2 pictures that you have on the top of the screen, the top left is one of the city's very first BMPs. That is in the Hillcrest Community Center parking lot. So that little green space there takes water from the parking area through curb cuts, directs it to the center channel there in that island. And instead of having a raised flower bed, you have a depressed flower bed where we're taking in that water. On the right side is Bell Avenue Pond. That was a large pond that was created to help manage some of the stormwater that was flowing into that area and breaching a small dam, impacting that neighborhood. Instead of just reconstructing a bigger dam, the city took a step back and worked with the local area to get some additional land and properties, and we manage stormwater through this wet retention pond where we are capturing that water, has some fountains, has a lot of aesthetic appeal to it, but it's planted in native grasses so that it can filter that stormwater as well. That's all addressing the quality of our stormwater. And then below, to the left, is Federal Home Loan Bank. You see they've decided to manage their post-construction stormwater runoff through these center parking islands. And then to the right is the 501 Kanza Education and Science Park. So again, federal government requires the state to make sure they're inspecting us and we're holding people accountable. And as part of this accountability practice, anything post-construction 2021 is required to be doing inspections and submitting those inspections to the city. Our ordinance calls for this, our practices call for that, but we have very limited compliance right now. So we are under a consent agreement with the EPA to say we're going to do our best to get compliance and make sure we're doing the enforcement component of this practice, which is going to require us to be reaching out to all of the folks within the city that have post-construction BMPs, request their records, make sure they're understanding the regulations and know how to comply, and we'll help them get there as best as we can. But in totality, 190 plus BMPs, 199 between private and city-owned BMPs across the city. So there's a large universe of BMPs out there, and we just need to make sure that we are doing our job to inspect them and make sure that the business owners are complying and keeping them well-maintained so that they're doing what they're intended to do, which is clean and manage that stormwater. I want to take a minute to introduce Aaron Grams. He is our stormwater permit coordinator, and he's going to talk a little bit more about this program. But also in the back here, we have Joe Rontier, who is just pretty new to the city. He's interned with us for a little while, and he is studying to become a licensed engineer. So he's working as an engineer in training under Zach Stevie, who is to his left. And Zach is our stormwater engineer that's been with the city for several years now. So they all work probably faces that you will rarely see, but they're very integral to our stormwater program and making sure that we're compliant. And with that, I'm going to flip back to this program that we have planned to help us roll this out. We are in the first and moving into the second quarter of 2025, where we have finalized our plan and database of all of these BMPs. We are beginning to develop and implement this public education campaign. This is part of that. We want to make sure that you guys have the opportunity to understand and ask us whatever questions you might have as you are prepping to see this roll out across the city. We want to then start sending out these notifications to the property owners that are invested and required to meet the letters that we're going to be sending out. And then Aaron's going to talk a little bit more about this survey that they've developed to collect some of the information from them so that we can help develop these training sessions so we can, again, give people the education and the tools that they need to help comply with this regulation. And then hopefully by the end of the year, we have enough accomplished that we can start giving, we've been giving EPA updates every 6 months on where we're at with compliance, and they've been pleased with the compliance that we've made to date after that 2018 inspection. But this, again, is the last item on our list, and we wish we could convince them that we're doing what we need to do, but they would like to see us have a little bit more longstanding compliance. And so we anticipate if we can manage all of this and show that we have a lot more participation through our annual stormwater report at the those are due in February of the next year. So in 2026, we will submit our report for 2025, and then we anticipate being able to get that lifted. That's our main goal, is to get that agreement of consent lifted from the EPA. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Aaron to talk about everyone's responsibilities and what their plan of action is.
Thank you. So the letter is a starting reach out, starting conversation. Some property owners may not know they have a BMP on their property, or they may be very well aware and already doing the maintenance. So to cover both sides, what the letter just describes what a BMP is, why it was designed, why it was installed, and that there is maintenance is required and the responsibility falls to the property owner. Some may know this, some may not. So it's for the city to ensure that the property owners are aware what they are required to do, and that's where our group will come in, help them along if they have questions, but then also work with the current consultant for training that we plan to in our future program. Along with the letter is the basic survey, just 11 questions just to kind of get a baseline of their knowledge, or how many BMPs on their property, if it's 1, 2, or 6. And also that gives us an idea of kind of constructing the training, so that way we don't want to go too far into detail, but at the same time we want to provide as much education that they can understand, and that way we're not overreaching or setting themselves up for failure to where we just take it way out in there into left field. So the letter is just starting points, just to reach out, and hopefully we're able to get the survey results back. We are working with IT department on the QR codes that will take the survey takers straight to the Stormwater webpage with the city of Topeka. Currently, we are in a little holding pattern until that new webpage is designed and rolled out. But this way, it's twofold, to where it also tells the property owner, here's resources, here's educational components for maintenance and inspection, but then also you can do the survey as well, so that way it's covering both bases.
And with that, we will stand for questions.
Any question for Director Davis and her group? Chair recognizes Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So how are we gonna help them if they can't help themselves? Like, you know, what if it's an elderly person or handicapped or, you know, then what's the point of?
Well, fortunately, most of the residential folks they're not required to have these. If it's a newer residential development, it's referred to as, there's different regulations or definitions of what we call a larger common plan of development. So if it's a brand new subdivision, they will likely have a BMP that all of the homes are directed towards, but we don't have these BMPs on private individual homes across the city unless someone has voluntarily elected to do that, which we do have some of those, but they're not they don't meet the same requirements.
So I guess I'm thinking of that basin behind 25th and Fillmore that I call you.
Yep.
Is
Yep.
that one of these?
That is a city-owned BMP.
Okay, so
the
that's city-owned. Okay, because I know that has been a problem ever
Yep.
since I've been on the council, which has not been long, but it's been a problem. And I just want to, they don't do anything to it, so.
Right.
Okay.
So that's part of the challenge, because these are typically designed and planted with native plants. They're, the maintenance is set it and forget it, let the natives do what they need to do. But when they're nestled inside a residential area like that, it is difficult to make that transition between a manicured lawn that these homeowners are required to have and then something that's larger and has plants that can be anywhere from 3 to 8 foot tall sometimes. So we do have a lot of complaints when those are smack in the middle of a development, and we try to work through those as best we can. Those were installed 20 plus years ago, and so that's when they first started installing BMPs here in Topeka. Now we've had a lot more education and understanding, and seen that the design community has also learned a lot, and they're designed and developed much more aesthetically these days. They are more inconspicuous, we hope. And you'll see these across communities all over the country, but some of those older ones are a little outdated, I would say, in terms of design. But yeah, that's
Okay.
exactly what we're talking about.
Well, I appreciate that explanation, Sylvia, and I think since we own it, as long as we at least screw them once a year. And I
Yep.
know there's a couple years that got past me, but I will keep it on the radar. Thank you.
To further answer your question, though, part of the reason they're not complying is when you're talking about businesses, many of those are owned by people that don't live here, if they're a corporation or something like that. And so oftentimes the local maintenance folks don't even know that this exists. If it's behind a building like, off to the side, Home Depot or something like that, they may not even know that that is theirs or that they're responsible for doing maintenance. And that's part of why we desperately need this education, so we can make sure everybody understands what we have on paper as being theirs and that they understand the requirements that we're asking them.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Holford.
Well, I'll chime in and say the one north of Home Depot is a disaster. Nobody does anything, it's full of trash. And so is there a database that lists all of these?
Yep.
That we can search at some point and find out who the owner is and
Yep.
whose responsibility?
That's exactly what this team has been working on, building that database, looking through what has been submitted through the newer, all the records that we have on the newer development, but then also going through LiDAR data and things of that nature so we can see low spots and go investigate whether that's a BMP or not. So if we don't have it on paper already, we can get it on paper. They've been working hard to develop that overall database. We have had some challenges with certain areas where we've already been trying to get a hold of how do we communicate the best and who locally can we work with. Again, that's all part of the pre-work that they've been doing so that when we're ready, these letters are going to go hopefully to who we think is the best party. And some of it takes a lot of time and effort to track down the people going to the businesses, knocking on the front doors and just continuing to try to find those people. And it's not unheard of that we have to take some additional measures for enforcement. We're prepared and ready to do that, but we really try to get compliance through voluntary measures and just working with them.
Okay, so examples of a BMP with, it wasn't that long ago, they put the retention pond, I guess you could call it, it's usually dry, on the governor's property there on Fairlawn. Would that be considered a BMP? Or is that just for, it was a problem because of the water coming down off the hill and trying to go through the stormwater pipes across the street and was flooding a house. So I'm trying to get a feel for what they are, what they look like, and it is taken care of.
Sure. I can't tell you if that one shows up in our database or not off the top of my head. I'll have to look. But some of them were designed, it is? Okay, well, there's your answer. Yes.
Okay.
So some of them, however, were just designed as detention. So volume only, some of our older ones in town, you'll see detention ponds that are really there to capture that stormwater and slow it down, not necessarily address the quality where it's sitting and waiting long enough to be filtered through the soil. So it really depends on the design that went into it and if they're engineered enough to meet our BMP standards. So we have a whole manual out there. That's another component of this that's taken several years to develop and really get staff who are knowledgeable, who understand all of those things so that they can help our design teams work to comply with that.
Okay, the next one I thought of was the one in Gage Park, about the center just east of Rhinish Rose Garden. Is that considered one?
Yes.
And so that's Gage Park Authority, I guess, has and Parks and Rec.
Yeah, and that was a big partnership because that pond is designed to address stormwater from that entire area. So that's why you see the size of that is so large, because it's really there to hopefully treat stormwater from the parking areas and everything else around that. The zoo had some additional improvements internally that they had to work on, and then they're also required to address these standards as they improve their facilities.
Okay, because Discovery Center's adding on, and I don't see anything being built like that up there.
According to the ordinance, they may have.
But they do have the berms.
Yes, in the southeast corner, or that native area they used to have there, they are building it right there in that location, right along 10th Street.
Okay. Then what do you do if you've got somebody like Hills who just keeps adding on and adding on?
Those sometimes fall in gray areas, and we have to work with that through the review process and determine, again, does it fall under that greater common plan of development? Is there room on the site? And what else they can do to help meet the requirements. So it's very much how that comes to us through that review process. That's a great question, and some of those areas are a much bigger challenge because they're so heavily developed already.
And you said a half acre or an acre, where they?
Well, typically, if they're an acre or more, they have to get an MPDES permit themselves, erosion and sediment control permit, and then that triggers a review to determine whether or not they meet our requirements. So yes, typically that threshold is an acre or greater.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Anything else for Director Davis? Well, I would like to welcome the new members that are deciding to take on the challenges of working in the city utilities. Also like to thank all of the people that have presented to us today. We appreciate all of the information. With that, our next meeting scheduled for May 20, 2025. Anything else for this committee?
What day is 2025?
Tuesday?
May the 25th?
May 20th, 2025.
Okay, my bad. I thought I heard 25.
Okay. If there's nothing else to come before this committee, we're adjourned.